Product not yet rated.
Medieval 2 Total War is a game that combines a turn-based strategy element played out on a global map, with epic real-time battles played out on huge, realistic battlefields. Medieval 2's grand campaign spans the years 1080 to 1530 and challenges you to take control of one of 17 nations and steer them to global domination. You'll use diplomacy, espionage, trade, religion, and military might on your path to victory. This is the most turbulent of times. This is Total War.
Hello there, I'm Ken Turner, lead programmer from the Creative Assembly, and I'm going to take you through a basic overview of our game, Medieval 2 Total War. In the Grand Campaign, you'll begin with your chosen nation and start with a number of regions under your control. Your objective is to build up these regions by developing your cities and castles through construction of new buildings, which in turn unlock new technologies. These allow you to create a cast of characters, such as princesses, priests and merchants, that you can use to gain advantage over rival nations on the map, through diplomacy, religion and trade. More significantly, they allow you to recruit bigger and better armies. Your armies are then put to use as you seek to expand your empire across the map. Move an army into enemy territory to clash with a rival army and the game transports you to the battlefield. Here, you take control of your troops in real time and use real-world tactics and strategies to triumph. Use a combination of infantry, archers, cavalry and artillery to help you claim victory on the battlefield. Capture enemy castles and cities to expand your kingdom and ultimately achieve your objective to become the world's dominant faction. That concludes a basic overview of the game. Join us in the coming months as we take a closer look at the elements of the campaign game and the strategies of the battlefield as we examine Medieval 2 Total War in more detail.
Hello, I'm Penny Sweetser, a game designer at the Creative Assembly. In this movie, I will show you how settlements work in the campaign game, focusing on one of Medieval 2's new features, cities and castles. Having chosen your kingdom for the Grand Campaign, you'll begin with a small number of provinces under your control. Here we're playing as the English, who begin the campaign with 3 provinces. These are marked by the settlements Nottingham, London, and over the channel, Caen. This scroll gives us information on the province and its settlement. From here you can develop and improve your settlements by constructing new buildings, adjusting the tax rates, and managing your kingdom's population, economy, and military. As you progress through the technology tree, new buildings become available that will enable your kingdom to develop in all of these areas. In Medieval 2, settlements can be developed as either cities or castles. Cities will provide your main source of income, and the technology tree reflects this by allowing you to build structures that will boost your economy and population. Castles, on the other hand, focus on the military. Developing your castles will allow you to recruit better and more varied troops for the battlefield. As a rule, castles have smaller, more stable populations and are easier to manage. And in times of war, they can quickly raise powerful armies and construct defences to resist an enemy siege. However, later in the campaign, having a greater number of cities to generate more income from taxes and trade becomes essential. Players can convert one type of settlement to the other to support their overall strategy at any point during the game. Striving for the perfect balance between cities and castles provides another compelling layer of strategy to the Total War experience. So that was a brief preview of how cities and castles work in the Medieval 2 campaign game. Join us next time as we continue to look closely at the features of the campaign game and the strategies of the battlefield in Medieval 2 Total War.
Hey, my name's Xantus, and I'm one of the designers from the Creative Assembly, and I'll be taking you through a video preview of how religion works in Medieval 2 Total War. Religion has an absolutely huge impact on how you'll play the grand campaign. If you can ensure that the faith of your people is the dominant religion in your lands, then the people will be content. However, if you fail to spread the word of your religion, your people's faith will begin to wane. They will fall to the temptations of heresy and witchcraft, which will cause civil unrest in your provinces.
Once I convert you, you'll thank me.
Play as one of the 11 Catholic factions, and religion becomes even more important to your overall strategies. The Pope will monitor the faith of your population, prompt you with missions, and call crusades to test your loyalty and faith. Once your armies join these crusades, you will be able to recruit unique crusader units, and your generals will develop into great leaders. And more importantly, your nation's reputation with the Pope and the Papal States will improve. Eventually, you will begin to win favour with the Pope himself. This allows you to intervene with the papal affairs and even request targets for future crusades. However, if you turn your back on the Catholic faith and allow heresy and witchcraft to creep through your lands, the Pope will intervene. Inquisitors will sweep through your provinces in search of heretics, leaving a trail of death and fear that can see some of your valuable generals burnt at the stake. If you continue to disregard the Pope's wishes or choose to wage war on other Catholic nations, you could face excommunication. If banished from your religion, your lands will be open to attack from the other Catholic nations. The Pope is therefore a powerful figure, but it's a position even your lowly priest can aspire to. If you succeed in getting a priest elected to the College of Cardinals, he could one day become the Pope himself. Use your diplomatic edge to rig the papal elections, or perhaps employ an assassin to eliminate rival candidates. Success will bring you strong influence with the Pope, control over crusades, and a position of power in the Catholic world. If you can control religion and survive its perils, can become a powerful tool in the grand campaign. That concludes our preview of religion in Medieval 2's campaign game. Join us again as we continue to examine the strategies of the battlefield and the features of the campaign game in Medieval 2 Total War.
Hi, I'm Dan Leftonen, a designer from the Creative Assembly, and I'll be taking you through a video preview of Siege Warfare in Medieval 2 Total War. Mastering the strategy of Siege Warfare will be an important element of your success in Medieval 2's grand campaign. Victorious siege battles are crucial to the expansion of your empire as you seek to take enemy provinces on your path to domination. Deploying a spy to infiltrate the enemy settlement is often a wise first step towards seizing that settlement. If successful, he will give you vital information on enemy defences, troops and food supplies. You may be able to use this information to starve out your enemy and win a war of attrition. However, by maintaining a siege, you risk the arrival of enemy reinforcements. So carrying out a full assault on the enemy settlement is often the wisest choice of action, although your armies must be well prepared for such an attack. Siege battles are epic affairs, fought in and around cities and castles that feature huge defensive walls, covered with archers and soldiers with artillery towers all prepared to repel any attack. Your spy has a chance to open up a settlement's main gate from within. But failing this, your armies must rely on an array of siege weaponry to help breach the walls or smash through the fortified gates. Your armies can raise siege equipment on the battlefield, such as battering rams, ladders, and siege towers. Early on in the campaign, you can also construct artillery to threaten enemy walls, like ballistas, catapults, and later, powerful trebuchet, which can prove effective at penetrating the walls of an enemy stronghold if protected from enemy fire. However, with the discovery of gunpowder, attackers can amass the firepower to overcome even the most formidable defensive walls from a far greater range. Mortars, cannons, and the monster bombard will change the face of your siege warfare. But even with such considerable weapons, the huge castles of the day present a massive challenge to any attacker. Seizing a mighty fortress will mean breaching up to 3 sets of castle walls, whilst under murderous fire. Attackers will have to plan carefully and consider sparing units and siege weaponry for each wave of attack. Meanwhile, defenders must choose whether to forfeit their defences and sally out to do battle in open terrain, or hold their ground whilst choosing the right time to fall back to the protection of the inner wall. Eventually, the attackers must be beaten back and forced into retreat, or the brave defence will come to an end in a bitter, last-ditch battle deep within the castle grounds. These tactics and strategies of siege warfare must be mastered if you are to expand your kingdom and hold off any invading enemies at your gates. That concludes our preview of sieges in Medieval 2. Join us again as we continue to examine the strategies of the battlefield and the features of the campaign game in Medieval 2 Total War. Hi, I'm Dan Leftonen, a designer from the Creative Assembly, and I'll be taking you through a video preview of the battlefield units available in Medieval 2 Total War. There's a huge variety of military units available, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, which trade off against each other in classic paper, scissors, rock fashion. There are many missile troops in the game, and they can be broken down into 3 broad groups: archers, crossbowmen, and gunners. Archers use different types of bows to fire upon enemies at range, with the elite longbows having the greatest range and are able to penetrate some armours. Crossbow-equipped troops can also penetrate some armours, and are favoured throughout the medieval world for their simplicity. Gunners are firearmed equipped soldiers, and appear near the end of the game. Firearms cause fear in enemies who face these loud, startling weapons. Firearms are very effective at penetrating armour. Missile troops do not fare well in melee combat though. Cavalry come in many flavours as well. Whether it's light cavalry, who race ahead to flank an enemy or engage his missile troops, to missile-equipped cavalry, determined to harass an enemy to death, or even splendidly armoured knights, who use their might and weight to drive into the enemy's centre, shattering their units. Cavalry are highly mobile, able to reposition on a battlefield much faster than infantry, and are devastating when charging an enemy's flanks or chasing down routing soldiers. Be warned though, they are vulnerable against spear and pike equipped infantry, set to receive their charge. Infantry form the bulk of most armies, and can be divided into 2 kinds of troops: assault and defence. Assault infantry are typically armed with sword, axe or mace, and are used to lead the attack on enemy armies. Defensive troops are armed with polearms, such as spears and pikes, and are used to hold the line, particularly strong against cavalry. Most infantry are slow-moving though, and vulnerable to missile troops. Siege engines, such as ballistas, catapults and trebuchets, can break through city walls with huge missiles. They can even devastate enemy troops from great distances with fiery projectiles, or even rotten animal carcasses in the case of the trebuchet. However, they're very slow-moving and inaccurate when firing at troops. This is also true of the gunpowder artillery, which become available later in the game. Bombards, culverins, cannons, basilisks, mortars, multi-barrel rebolts, and even the rare rocket launcher make an appearance. Their great range and special attacks, including volley fire and explosive shells, make them a very dangerous proposition. That concludes our preview of the unit types available in the game. Join us again as we continue to examine the strategies of the battlefield and the features of the campaign game in Medieval 2: Total War. Hi, I'm Dan Leftonen, a designer from the Creative Assembly, and I'll be taking you through a video preview of battle tactics in Medieval 2: Total War. Mastering the units, strategies and tactics of the battlefield is a vital component in any successful Medieval 2: Total War campaign. There's no resource management on the battle map. It's an epic real-time clash of armies in a bloody fight to the death. The military tactics carried out in the real world reap rewards on Medieval 2's battlefield. So it's an advantage to be on higher ground than your opponent, preferably protected by an incline too steep for the enemy to climb. Troops can suffer from the effects of fatigue and poor morale, and can be hampered by bad weather. Successfully attacking an enemy from the flank or rear can cause them to panic and flee. Units can also shelter from enemy arrows beneath trees, or even hide beneath them completely, waiting to spring out in ambush. The strengths and weaknesses of the various units mean that learning to blend them together and deploy them to best effect is a vital and rewarding experience. You may find your archers threatened by enemy cavalry, but bringing some infantry up in support changes the cavalry from a threat to a target. In response, the enemy sends in his infantry to sweep yours aside. But you flank them with your cavalry and charge home into their rear, routing them. Each faction has its own unique troop roster, and this influences the way it must approach battle. For example, Western European armies are usually heavily armoured and can use this to bludgeon their way to victory. Heavy infantry crashes into the enemy centre, whilst heavy cavalry move around the flanks to thunder into their rear. Middle Eastern factions, on the other hand, boast lighter, more mobile troops who weaken their enemy from a distance with skirmishers and horse archers, before closing swiftly to finish off the demoralised tatters of the enemy army. There are many subtle but intuitive tactics and strategies to master before you can call yourself a true general, able to dominate your foe and triumph despite the odds. That concludes our preview of battle tactics in Medieval 2. Join us again as we continue to examine the strategies of the battlefield and the features of the campaign game in Medieval 2: Total War.